It's the holidays and time for my annual holiday brewing, and this year it'll be done completely on the Anvil Foundry. And this episode will be my airing of grievances, and that all starts now. Welcome to Big Monster Brewing, the Anvil Foundry edition. I am Matt, and in this episode, I am doing my yearly holiday beer. But before we get started, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing, hitting that notification bell, share, like, do all the YouTube things that everyone else asks to do, which I should really write down because I don't seem to remember them. But yes, please do those and more. And comment. The other thing, too, I've gotten a lot of comments lately, and I've really enjoyed interacting with everybody, so I think that covers all the bases. This is a tradition I do every year in the sense that I make a beer for the holidays, but I don't make the same beer every year. In fact, I don't think I've made the same beer twice during the holidays. I don't even take a kind of a one-off recipe and tweak it each year. I go for something completely different every holiday season. It kind of all depends on what I am trying to accomplish with that particular beer that year. So this year, there's two things I kind of want to do with this beer. One, I do want to make it distinctively holiday. I want those recognizable holiday spices, the things that you taste and smell, and it reminds you of the holidays. I also don't want that to be overwhelming. I just want it to be part of a good beer. The second thing I want to do, I kind of want to make it on the bigger side. I'm not looking for double digits in the ABV, but I want it a little strong. I want it kind of a winter warmer. I want to pretend it's going to be cold for once in Orlando, Florida during the holidays. But we know that's not going to happen. It's going to be an 80-degree Festivus, I'm sure. But to get to that goal, we do need a recipe, and for me, that always starts with the grist. To get this on the stronger side, I'm starting with a big base of 86% pale malt. Now, to bring in a little bit of that holiday flavor I'm looking for through the specialty malts, I am going to add 2% Belgian Special B to kind of try to draw out a little bit of that dark fruit kind of raisin flavor in the beer. To bring in a perceived warmness to the beer, I'm going to add 2% brown malt to kind of give just a little faint hint of roast, almost more of a toast, kind of like a baked goods kind of taste to the beer. And then finally, to ramp up the color to match what a traditional winter warmer looks like, I'm going to add 1.5% Carafa 2. Now that all adds up to 91.5%, leaving a pretty sizable addition that we're going to put into the boil, but we'll talk about that very soon. For this beer, I'm making a 2.5 gallon batch on the 6.5 gallon Anvil Foundry, and I'm mashing it at 152 degrees and recirculating for the entire 60-minute mash. To help get all I can out of these grains and get a bigger beer, I stir the mash about every 15 minutes. And between stirs, I have enough time to get my boil additions ready. We've got quite a few boil additions for this beer, starting with 25 IBUs of Columbus hops at 60 minutes. That's followed by 19 IBUs of Columbus hops again at 30 minutes. And now we're going to add a little bit of that warmth to the winter warmer by adding 10 ounces of Brewmutt at 10 minutes. This is soft light brown Belgian sugar that'll increase the ABV and add a touch of toffee and caramel to the flavor. And this 10 ounces of Brewmutt rounds out the fermentables. This is that last 8.5% for the fermentable sugars in this beer. Now for the holiday flavor, I'm starting with 0.25 ounces of sweet orange peel at 5 minutes. And then just before flame out, I'm adding 0.15 ounce of mulling spices and letting it steep as the wort cools down. For the last 10 minutes of the mash, I increase the temperature to 168 degrees Fahrenheit for a mash out. When that's done, I lift the malt pipe out of the foundry, set the foundry to boil mode, and then sparge with a gallon of 170 degree water. After the sparge, I take a pre-boil gravity measurement, and I'm aiming for 1.048, and I get 1.049. I've got a lot of this Brewing sugar to add, so I'm not going to dump it all in and risk scorching the bottom of the foundry. So I add some boiling wort to it, stir it up really well, and then dump that melted sugar directly into the boil. I want to leave the sweet orange peel and the mulling spices in the wort as I cool it down, but I don't want to add it loose and have it potentially clog up the dip tube. So I put them in muslin sacks and then tie them to the handle of the Anvil Foundry so they stay in one place as I stir to cool down the wort. I chill the wort down below 90 degrees and transfer it to a 3-gallon carboy. I cover it and stick it in the fermentation fridge until it reaches 65 degrees. Once it does, I pitch the starter of Y Yeast 1968 London ASB ale yeast that I made a couple nights earlier. I took a starting gravity reading of the wort left over in the foundry after the transfer. The target was 1.064 and I hit 1.067. The next morning, I checked the fermentation and it was going pretty darn well. I fermented at 65 degrees for 8 days and then raised the temperature to 69 degrees over the next 48 hours before I cold crashed it for 5 days, then kegged it, carbonated it with the Blickman Quick Carb, and then got it packaged for the holidays. It is tasting time, and it is very hot in this hat in December in Orlando, but I'm going to keep it on and push through for this holiday episode. They're about to taste the holiday beer. It's in a bottle. There's a few things to talk about here. First, the fact that it's in a bottle, because this is going to be gifted out to quite a few people social distantly. I'm going to leave a couple on some doorsteps in the neighborhood, drop some off at some friend's house, and I wanted to do something special, so I, as you can see, wax dipped the cap. And it's something I'll never do again. That is a ton of work for something that looks neat but does nothing but decorate the bottle. So I think I'll just put some decorative foil on next year or something. But I'm glad I learned. I'm glad I did it. So about the name, Feats of Strength. My holiday inspiration this season is Festivus, created by Frank Costanza in the series Seinfeld. I don't know what... almost knocked everything over. Don't know what year or what episode, but if you don't know what it is, I'll put a little thing here, card I think is what it's called, to an explanation of what Festivus is. Something we've kind of unofficially celebrated at Nia's As for a few years here. One of my co-creators of the podcast network does Seinfeld and character series. He's talking about Festivus. My wife and I have played the Festivus board game. Now we have a beer. So there we go. Take another look at that. I can read you the label. This one got a little wrinkly. That's why I'm using this one as the tasting one, so I don't hand this out as a gift. The label, I will say, if you looked at it real closely in the video, I did have these made at the same time. I had made some other labels, and I didn't know. I'm basing the description on what I thought it was going to taste like at the time, so I'm not sure it's accurate. I do know the ABV is not accurate. It's listed at 6.6 mathematically, or predicted, whatever you want to call it, in Beersmith, but then ended up being 7.2. So the description might not be exact. So let's get into this. I've been waving this butter knife around all day. You're probably wondering what that's all about. I'm going to scrape away a little bit of the wax. If you've never had to open a wax bottle without a ripcord on it before, this is the best way I've found to do it. And really, the sharper the blade, the easiest, but I did want to show you could do it with a butter knife. So there is a little bit of the gap in the wax. And there we go. Got it off fairly cleanly, actually. Shouldn't have any wax in the pour. Let's check it out. Okay, got it all in the glass. And I do like that color. It seems a little more burgundy in real life than it does on camera, but that's about the color. It's burgundy. It's fairly clear. Actually, it's quite clear. I did use some biofine at the end. Again, a little hard to tell on camera, but it's looking clearer to me than it is on camera. Let's check out the aroma. Right away, the first thing I get are the mulling spices. A little bit of cinnamon, definitely the clove. Get some sweet caramel notes off that as well. Yeah, it's generally it. I don't really get any of the hops. There really were no aroma or flavor hops, so there shouldn't be. No big head retention, but it does have the carbonation kind of, whoops, I out of camera range. Lacing, not lacing yet. We're not drinking it, but the collar around the top of the glass. So with that carbonation gone, it's still the mulling spices and that sweet caramel. And actually, got just a hint of roast there for a second. I can't get it now, but I definitely had it there for a moment. I think it is time to find out what it tastes like. I'm going to need to taste that again before I go with what I think my initial description is, because I hope that is going to make sense. What I say. I want to see if I'm right, because something very unique. I'm going to go with what my initial reaction is and say it tastes like a fresh baked cookie. I guess I should explain. There is a kind of that cookie sweetness to it, kind of like an oatmeal cookie. I think the raisin is coming a little bit out in the specialty malts. The caramelized sugar. It's kind of like a cross between, if I were to pick a cookie that it tastes like, it's a cross between an oatmeal cookie and a snickerdoodle. Because I think of the cinnamon and a little bit of the sugar. Maybe that Brewmutt is contributing that sugar taste. But the really interesting thing, which is what I was hoping would happen, though I didn't expect it to happen in the sense of tasting like a cookie, I think it's happening when I taste it one more time to find out. The most unique taste in this beer, which is with that other cookie taste is phenomenal, is there is a bit of baked taste in this. And what I mean by that is if you turn over a cookie and you have like that ring on the outside that's the darkest brown but not black, and you kind of break off a piece of that and taste it, it tastes different than if you bite the whole cookie. It's got that almost roasted, baked flavor in and of itself. That's in here. And that's what I was hoping the brown malt would kind of do, but I was thinking of the taste more in a winter, warmer overall thing, not in the sense of a cookie taste. This is a huge surprise. This is a Festivus Miracle, if you will. Let's taste this again. That is just so insane how it tastes like a freaking cookie. And it tastes like a cookie beer. That's the thing. It doesn't taste like a cookie where it's just sweet and sugary and a dessert thing. It tastes like a beer version of a cookie. And it's kind of, again, a cross between an oatmeal cookie and a snickerdoodle. I think I'm leaning more towards snickerdoodle now, but still being a beer, still being a heartiness to it, a little bit of a bitter back end on the finish. Definitely an alcohol presence without it being hot. That's pretty amazing. I did not expect that to come out like that, but I'm very happy it did. One big factor, and I was kind of wondering what was going to happen with this. I got a mulling spice specifically without ginger because one of the people that are going to get these beers is allergic to ginger, and they didn't get to try the pumpkin ale, so I want to make sure they didn't miss out on another experimental flavored beer that I don't do all that often. And I think that's making a world of difference because I've used mulling spices before and I've used ginger before in beers, and ginger can just take everything over. It tastes like a ginger snap or a gingerbread cookie. It's a really dominant flavor. I think not having ginger in this holidays ale is kind of a turning point on how I'm going to do my holiday ales. I said early on, I'm still digging that color. I said early on in this episode, I don't repeat or tweak my recipes. I may take that back. I might do this again with a little bit, or do a version of this again. Try to drive out that raisin a little bit, and maybe go for a snickerdoodle and call it a snickerdoodle beer of something or some sort. I don't know. This one is now worth playing with. I've always enjoyed doing holiday beers, but they ended up just being a good beer with some spices in it. This is a new result for me. So I got a lot to think about. And I'm going to think about it over another sip before we wrap up. That was a rather hearty sip, I'll admit. I kind of wanted to I wanted to drink the beer. I was going to try to make up some kind of tasting flavor profile thing. No, I really wanted to drink that. So I'm going to finish this, which won't take much. And I'm going to happily distribute the bottles at Christmas. I'm really excited to hear what people say about this. So that's it for this episode. So let me wrap up by saying, of course, thank you for watching. Leave in the comments what you do for the holidays, beer-wise. There's all kinds of recipes and all kinds of versions of or ways to approach a holiday ale. You can even take a well-made beer of some sort and do the same with the mulling spices in kind of like a kettle or a crock pot and do a warm beer around the fire if it weren't 90,000 degrees out like it is here in Florida constantly throughout the year. So let me know in the comments. And yeah, that's it. I'll say one more time, thank you for watching. Of course, happy holidays to everybody. And I'll be back with another episode soon. So until then, I'll see you in that next episode.